Donald Trump just backed down from Greenland invasion threats after weeks of escalation, and sources suggest this humiliating retreat reveals limits on his power that nation is finally waking up to. We're not talking about strategic repositioning or negotiated compromise. We're talking about reports that Trump threatened military force against NATO ally Denmark, demanded complete ownership of Greenland, threatened crushing tariffs on 8 European countries, then completely surrendered at Davos, claiming he made amazing deal when nothing actually changed. That Denmark still owns Greenland today. That tariffs never happened. That NATO gave him nothing of substance.
We've never needed them. We have never really asked anything of them. You know, they'll say they sent some troops to Afghanistan or this or that. And they did. They stayed a little back, a little off the front lines.
And what might make this moment so significant is how rare it is for Trump to publicly concede anything. When guy who refused to admit losing 2020 election, who sent violent mob to Capitol rather than accept defeat, suddenly backs down on world stage after threatening World War III over Ireland, that's not normal political retreat. That could be proof that guardrails still work when entire alliance pushes back together, that his threats are often hollow bluster designed to intimidate, and that once people stop being scared and call his bluff, he folds. But before we break down how Trump went from threatening NATO invasion to quiet surrender in 2 weeks and why European leaders say standing up to him actually works, real quick, you cannot trust mainstream media to explain that this wasn't strategic genius, but rather spectacular backdown exposing real limits on his power. That's why we built John Brown's show to bring you real stories, real context, and no corporate spin. If you want analysis that actually connects Greenland retreat to broader pattern of defeats, including criminal sentencing, and why world learned his threats are empty, hit that subscribe button right now. All right, let's get into what happened with Greenland and why sources suggest it represents inflection point where Trump's invincibility myth gets shattered. Because think about his entire political brand. He never loses. Everyone else is loser. That's been identity since 1980s. When he lost 2020 election to Biden by over 7 million votes, he didn't concede. He still hasn't conceded to this day. He tried overturning results through every means, including sending mob to attack Capitol. He'd rather tear country apart than admit he came in second place.
The only time NATO countries have been called to defend one of their own was when the U.S. asked for help after 9/11. British Prime Minister Keir Starmer blasting Trump's comments.
Let me start by paying tribute to the 457 of our armed services who lost their lives in Afghanistan. I consider President Trump's remarks to be insulting and frankly appalling.
So when Trump publicly backs down from something this major, when he retreats obviously on world stage threatening military invasion, then surrendering at economic forum, that's huge deal. Sources suggest it shows there are still limits on his power, even with Republicans controlling Congress and Supreme Court stacked with loyalists. That when entire Western alliance holds firm together, even Donald Trump has to fold his cards and walk away. And European officials are celebrating that standing up to his bullying works, that his threats are bluster that collapses when tested. Reports indicate this lesson won't be forgotten by China, Russia, Iran, or anyone else facing American demands. Let's start with how Greenland obsession escalated into international crisis, because sources suggest Trump's behavior triggered serious questions about his mental fitness. Reports indicate Trump has fixated on Greenland since first term, when he floated buying it from Denmark in 2019. Everyone laughed. Denmark said, "Not for sale." Prime Minister called idea absurd and ridiculous. Trump got so mad he canceled state visit to Denmark, but people moved on and forgot about his strange obsession. Fast forward to January 2026. Trump is back in White House with more power, and suddenly Greenland is back, but this time he's not talking about buying through diplomatic channels. Sources suggest he's talking about taking by force if necessary. And nobody's laughing anymore because he's actually president making very real threats that could blow up Western alliance that kept peace for 70 years. Think about specific escalation. Right after Venezuela strikes, Stephen Miller's wife posted picture of Greenland covered in American flag with word "soon" underneath. Administration started saying they had legal right to take Greenland whenever they wanted. And there's military dimension. Trump ordered Joint Special Operations Command to draw up detailed plans for what he called possible invasion. Reports indicate Joint Chiefs pushed back hard. These are career officers who understand attacking NATO ally would destroy alliance overnight, turn America into international pariah, be completely illegal under international law. But Trump kept escalating anyway. He went on record saying he doesn't need international law to do what he wants. Sources suggest he posted on Truth Social it might be choice between preserving NATO or seizing Greenland for America. He literally threatened blowing up most successful military alliance in human history over island. And there's bizarre personal element. He said full ownership of Greenland is psychologically needed for success, whatever that means. He posted AI-generated images of himself triumphantly planting American flag on Greenland alongside J.D. Vance and Marco Rubio. Reports indicate he was acting like conquering emperor from ancient Rome, not president of Democratic Republic that respects sovereignty. Sources suggest this behavior triggered alarm bells everywhere, including among his own military leadership, who recognized he might be serious about attacking ally. Think about tariff threats that followed. On Saturday, with no warning, Trump announced he would hit Denmark, Norway, Sweden, France, Germany, UK, Netherlands, and Finland with massive punishing tariffs. 10% on all imports starting February 1st, going up to 25% by June 1st unless they let him take Greenland. Reports indicate stock market immediately tanked. Billions in market value wiped out in hours because of one man's obsession with island most Americans couldn't find on map. But European leaders didn't just complain this time. Sources suggest they actually did something concrete and meaningful in response. NATO members sent actual troops to Greenland as show of solidarity and force. Germany sent military personnel. France sent troops quickly. Sweden and Norway joined deployment. They launched what they called Operation Arctic Endurance as unified response. Denmark deployed hundreds of elite Arctic warfare-trained soldiers. Reports indicate they sent Chief of Entire Army personally to oversee operations. General Peter Boysen went to Greenland himself. Think about what that military deployment signaled. Sources suggest it was clear message to Trump that they weren't rolling over, that they were prepared to defend themselves and each other. When NATO countries actually reinforce threatened ally with troops rather than just issuing statements, that's serious escalation that calls bluff. Reports indicate French President Macron called threats fundamentally unacceptable. British Prime Minister Starmer said it was completely wrong and dangerous behavior. Danish Prime Minister Frederiksen said attack on Greenland would end NATO entirely and permanently. And there's congressional dimension in United States. Democrats started talking seriously about invoking 25th Amendment. Senator Ed Markey called for it publicly. Representative Yasmin Ansari said Trump is extremely mentally ill and putting lives at risk, demanded immediate removal. Sources suggest Representative Sidney Kamlager-Dove said he's risking safety of every American with these threats. Senator Chris Murphy said Trump's messages were ramblings of man who lost touch with reality. Reports indicate multiple members openly questioned whether President was mentally fit to serve anymore. Share this video with everyone you know because there's foreign officials joining chorus. Deputy Speaker of Danish Parliament went on Sky News directly asking if American president was even capable of running country anymore. Medical experts on television started speculating openly about cognitive decline. Sources suggest NBC medical analyst named Vin Gupta said Trump's behavior could be signs of early Alzheimer's or frontal lobe dementia. That letter to Norway about Nobel Peace Prize crossed line of proper adult behavior, warranting thorough assessment of neurological fitness. Reports indicate when allied foreign officials and medical experts all publicly question president's mental state, that creates narrative damage that lingers. But then came Davos, January 21st at World Economic Forum. This was supposed to be Trump's big moment showing strength on world stage. Sources suggest this was where he would double down on demands and prove he meant business about Greenland. Instead, it became public surrender ceremony in front of entire watching world. He met with NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte on sidelines, and suddenly everything changed completely overnight. Trump announced he would not use force to take Greenland after all. He said, "People thought I would use force. I don't have to use force. I don't want to use force. I won't use force." Reports indicate he dropped all tariff threats against 8 European countries immediately. He claimed they reached framework for amazing deal, called it ultimate long-term deal that was really fantastic for everyone, gets everything we wanted, including real national security. But when reporters pressed on what was actually in supposed deal, nobody could explain it. Think about what NATO officials said afterward. Sources suggest they confirmed sovereignty of Greenland was never even discussed in meeting with Rutte. Denmark immediately said Greenland still isn't for sale to anyone at any price. Nothing had actually changed in real world except Trump was no longer threatening to invade. Reports indicate British Foreign Secretary mentioned something vague about Arctic Sentry Partnership through NATO, but admitted that's just coordination program already existing in other regions. There was no real deal. There was no meaningful agreement, just Trump backing down from all threats and pretending he won something significant. And there's media assessment. Washington Post called it spectacular backdown in their coverage. Sources suggest they said it proved guardrails still exist in international system, that Trump's wildest impulses can be constrained when enough people and institutions push back firmly. European officials were openly celebrating outcome as victory. They said standing up to Trump, not giving in to bullying tactics, was right approach all along. Reports indicate analysts from University of Copenhagen called whatever deal Trump claimed nothing but face-saving pretend agreement designed to give him exit ramp from mess he created. Share this with everyone because there's broader pattern. Sources suggest this isn't only defeat he suffered recently. Legal analysts describe this stretch as Trump's week of stinging defeats exposing real limits. Supreme Court refused blocking criminal sentencing in hush money case. He became first president-elect in American history sentenced on criminal charges. Reports indicate he couldn't stop it despite throwing every legal argument at courts. His DOJ had to abandon keeping loyalist in U.S. attorney position after judges ruled harshly. Courts signaling strongly they won't let him fire Federal Reserve officials on whim either. Ring is tightening from multiple directions. But step back and consider what Greenland retreat reveals about Trump's power and its limits. Sources suggest first lesson is his threats are often completely hollow noise designed to intimidate. Trump loves threatening people. Its entire negotiating style going back decades. He talks big constantly, makes outrageous extreme demands, threatens crushing tariffs that will destroy economies overnight, threatens military action starting major wars. Reports indicate lot of time throughout career. People believed him and got scared. They give in early because frightened of what he might do. They don't want to find out if he's bluffing, so they fold before cards are shown. But Greenland showed world clearly what happens when people don't give in to demands. When they actually call bluff and stand firm together without backing down, he backs down instead. Sources suggest he finds way to declare victory publicly while actually losing everything originally demanded. He moves on quickly to next controversy, hoping everyone forgets what happened. European leaders learn this lesson very clearly. Reports indicate next time Trump threatens them with tariffs or military action, they're going to remember exactly what happened with Greenland. They'll be much more likely to hold firm and wait him out knowing he'll probably fold again. Think about international implications. China is definitely watching what happened here closely. Russia is watching and taking detailed notes. Iran is watching. Sources suggest every single country dealing with American threats is going to look at Greenland's situation and ask obvious question, is he actually going to follow through on this threat or is this just another bluff? Reports indicate that calculation changes everything about how world responds to Trump going forward. If his threats are recognized as empty, his leverage disappears entirely. And there's mental fitness narrative. Sources suggest fact that elected officials publicly questioned whether president is mentally stable enough to serve matters for broader narrative. It creates doubt in public mind. Puts question out there for everyone to think about. Reports indicate it wasn't just Democrats raising concerns. Foreign leaders from allied nations, respected medical experts on television, analysts around world were all openly questioning Trump's fitness after Greenland episode. That kind of talk doesn't disappear overnight. It lingers and builds over time. Make sure you're subscribed to John Brown Show because there's connection to current threats. Trump just threatened invoking Insurrection Act to send active duty military into Minneapolis after federal agents killed 2 people during immigration raids. Sources suggest he posted that if dishonest politicians of Minnesota let insurrectionists assault ICE patriots, he would invoke act to send troops and swiftly conclude this disgrace. Politico calls it biggest threat of escalation since first killing. Reports indicate his rhetoric risks igniting more fervor in city already on edge. This is same pattern. Massive threats designed to intimidate. Question is whether pushback works again like it did with Greenland. So here's what Trump's Greenland retreat reveals. He threatened military invasion of NATO ally Denmark for weeks, demanded complete ownership of Greenland, threatened crushing tariffs on 8 European countries, then completely surrendered at Davos, claiming amazing deal when nothing changed. Denmark still owns Greenland. Tariffs never happened. NATO gave nothing substantive. Sources suggest this represents spectacular backdown, exposing limits on his power. European leaders celebrating that standing up to bullying works. His threats proven as hollow bluster that collapses when tested. World learning that calling his bluff makes him fold. Question is whether this lesson gets applied to future threats, including Insurrection Act deployment to Minneapolis, or whether each crisis requires same coordinated pushback to stop his dangerous escalations. Stay tuned.